All right, everybody. It's Frost the Fig Boss. So we are here once again for another live stream. Let me, before we begin, I'm going to post all of the links here to the live stream here on my social media. So just give me a second. Find the link. Put that on the blog. If anyone's not a part of the blog, you can go down to the bottom. My blog here, it's figboss.com. Put in your email and you'll just you'll get notified every time there's a new blog post on the blog. All right, so I'm putting this now on. I'll just show you guys what I'm doing here. Publishing this on the blog. So again, now you're aware. If you are following me on the blog, we'll post this also on Facebook and Instagram. Really quickly, what we're going to talk about here today in this live stream, guys, it pretty much says it all in the post. But I really want to talk to you guys about kind of the end of season thoughts over the next few weeks. You know, a lot of things that we're going to be doing now that it is the end of the season. Now that we have a lot of frost that's been coming in, probably for most of us in the Northeast now at this point. What are some of the things we should be doing? So, you know, a lot of wintertime prep. I want to talk a little bit about varieties. I really want to make sure that when I talk to you guys about these varieties, we are putting together a nice kind of master list. I know somewhere around the midway point of my fig season, we did do a post here on the blog, and that was about the last live stream actually that we did was about the varieties that we looked at, about these new standout fig varieties so far in 2021. And we really did find some special figs, I must say, in this in that last talk that we did. Some of them are rather new, but you know, we've actually had quite a few figs actually from this point that I thought, wow, they're really impressive as well. They're going to get a nice mention, I think, at the end of our season here in that next live stream that we do, where I kind of really put all my thoughts together, I think, on this current season. By the way, if you guys are here in the chat, let me know down in the comments you guys are here. I just want to make sure that I'm not talking to myself. It says we have 9 viewers, but if you guys are here, put something in the chat for me. Let me know that you guys can hear me okay. Everything looks good, and then also yeah, that way I don't know that I'm talking to myself, right? So basically we're gonna have a Q&A at the end. If no one's familiar with this particular thing that we do, this live stream, I know a lot of you guys like to come back every time that we do it, and we always do the Q&A at the end. So if you guys have any questions or things that you guys want to me to address, and maybe you guys can't stick around for the whole thing because we're going to do this for probably another hour and a half. So if you're not willing to stick around for an hour and a half, I don't blame you. I'm sure it's next to impossible for most of us. So if you have a question, put it in the chat and I'll get back to it at some point in this video. And then if you guys are ever curious about the answer, maybe the next day or a week from now, whatever it is, you come back to this video and you'll see the answer at some point that I've figured that out in this video. And that way, it's not like you guys are waiting forever for me to get to the answer at the end. So yeah, thank you guys for saying hello in chat. It's nice to see everybody here. All right, so one of the things I really wanted to talk about, I think first, what I really want to get to in this video is actually about a couple of the varieties. We were kind of getting into that just now with some of these standout varieties. One of the varieties that we talked about, and we've been talking about it for months, is Black Celeste. This one really impressed me. I actually think I really have to sit down and think about it. I haven't had a ton of time to do that. But when I do, I think it's going to be at least in my top 3, and it may even be the best fig I grow. And that's saying something, because I'm sure a lot of you guys know at this point how much I love Verdino del Nord. That fig's amazing. It's not going anywhere. I think people will eventually, now that I've sort of, released the information to you guys over the last few years that it is such a special fig. People are starting to catch on. Some people have even, echoed my statements, which is nice to see because, it's nice to hear not just one person's opinion, but the opinions of quite a few people. This is a fig, however, this Black Celeste, that really doesn't have much information on it at all, other than really what's coming from myself. There isn't too many growers. I know my friend Bass has grown it in the past. I don't really know how much really he's given a chance to this particular fruit. I know there's a guy named Paulie up in British Columbia, Canada, that really loves this fig. And years ago, actually, he was kind of the one that I originally saw his postings on it. And anyone in British Columbia, Canada, speaking highly of a fig, and you could tell, just by looking at it, that it was going to be special. You should probably listen. So at least for someone like me in my climate, it does make some sense. And he kind of disappeared out of the fig communities for very good reasons, I'm sure, just like myself. And he hasn't really been around the fig communities enough to really, I think, talk too much about this fruit. He talked a lot about it, I think, on Figs for Fun. And then maybe on one of the Facebook groups, he did end up posting something at some point about it. And I was always really impressed with it and thought, wow, what a great fig. And then years ago, shortly after, I guess, that time, I really got into Celeste. And I started, documenting, actually, and talking a lot about Celeste here on the blog, on the podcast that we have, on the channel. We even did, by the way, a breakdown of all the different Celeste types. And it's right here. It's called The Many Strains of Celeste. And we talked about, I even had, I think, one podcast episode that was probably like an hour long, just like this, talking about Celeste. We talked about it for like an hour. It's really, truly a spectacular piece of fruit. What really gets me is that there's so many varieties out there, and not just figs, but so many other fruits that are just utter crap. And I only really try to really promote to you guys the figs that have all the qualities that really are a fantastic piece of fruit. People just don't get it, I think. They don't understand that I've put in all the time to really understand this piece of fruit. When the people recently have been sort of complaining on some of the fig groups, I got a message on FigBid. Not that I'm even part of our figs anymore, but people were really upset that I was getting higher prices for a fig that I'm promoting. And people, of course, always are going to blame me for hyping, because I'm one of the few people who actually, really understands these fruits, I think, and is willing to actually put their opinion out there on the line in the form of a video or in the form of a post, and actually back up what they're saying. There's so many people throughout the many years that I've been in the fig community that will talk about a fig and then have nothing to back it up. We'll either just claim, oh, it's rare, or say, oh, it's tasty, and then won't even talk about any of the characteristics, not really give any sort of concrete, solid evidence of why it actually is a good fig. If anything I've ever done on this channel is try to make you guys more aware of what it is to grow figs. What are the better characteristics of figs so that you can apply this knowledge to your own climate and to all the varieties in your own climate? And so many of you guys actually have gotten that, and I think that's really awesome. People didn't even use the term hang time until I started really mentioning it a couple years ago. So, things are catching on. People are understanding that, these people who, honestly are just hyping figs, that's not a good thing. And people, for some reason, still seem to hate on me, still seem to be very ignorant to what we're doing here on this channel. They really do talk out of their butts. There's no other way to put it. I've really been recently just laughing about some of the nonsense that I've been seeing on our figs once again because of this person who contacted me. So let me just break it all down for you guys. How about that? Let me just break it all down for these people. And I don't even want to do this to you guys on my own channel because I know that you guys understand this. I know that I'm speaking to my audience who understands all this stuff and isn't ignorant about what actually I'm about, right? We're doing this for a reason. I've spent ridiculous amounts of time of my life researching, growing figs, and spreading that information to people free. And then I have to be subjected to all this hatred and ignorance, and jealousy. Why? How is that fair? That's not fair at all. So let me just explain this really quickly to all these people who really are just lost. But so as I said, actually in this thread here, this post, the many strains of Celeste, and that originally I thought Celeste, when we were really getting into Celeste and really understanding the beauty of it, I was really trying to figure out if there really was a difference between Celeste and Blue Celeste. And it seemed like all the various photos I've seen, even my own experiences growing Celeste, I wasn't really sure that they were totally different. I definitely thought that they were in the beginning. And I made that publicly clear, that I thought there was a difference between Blue Celeste and Celeste. It wasn't just in the skin color, but just like what I found as I've started to learn more and more about this, you can read actually here a post from John Verdict, which really I think clears this up. Because John Verdict, the owner of Figs for Fun, who at one point, I don't know if he still does, but he probably has somewhere in the hundreds to thousands of varieties in California. He really was the first original, I guess, crazy fig person to have so many varieties. And at least his thoughts really have to mean something, I think, in this particular instance, because he says here on Figs for Fun, you can look it up. Here's the link. Generally, I propagate from Celeste JN, GM, IS, and Blue Celeste JN. The initials here, these are initials of people, by the way, so don't get confused by that. He says, those are my favorites, which is why I propagate them. Fruit drop has not been an issue with any of my Celeste trees in his collection. The USDA/UC Davis DNA testing indicates that all of the Celestes and Blue Celestes are the same. He says, I think we tested 19 different ones, but the performance here is not the same. So what you can think about these particular strains of Celeste is that, of course, they are genetically probably very, very similar, like the hardy Chicago types. If you tested them genetically, you probably wouldn't see a whole lot of difference in these 80, 100, 120 plus named varieties of hardy Chicago. You probably wouldn't see much of a difference looking at their DNA. But if you observe them and you see the different characteristics, you will know that they actually are indeed slightly different than each other. And among them, there will be one that is better than the others. Why am I going through all this effort to trial many different types of Celeste? Why am I going through all this effort to trial many different types of Pastelier, or many different types of Golden Celeste, or many different types of Black Mission, or many different types of Adriatic figs? Because clearly there's going to be one that performs better in my particular climate. Maybe at the end of the day they are a very similar fig, genetically or not genetically, whatever. The case is that there's going to be one that is different enough and is going to be better to the point where it is worth growing and it's worth spreading around. Why would I spread around? Why would I promote a variety of fig that, in all honesty, isn't going to really make the cut in the long run? Why would I promote an inferior strain of Celeste or an inferior strain of something else when I know there's probably going to be something out there that's very similar and slightly better? It just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. I'm sure at some points I may think one is better than the other, and then maybe the next year I might change my mind. So, it's not like I'm perfect or, this is going to be 100% set in stone from day one. But this, I think, really writes home the point here is that a lot of them are very similar. Now, that brings me to Black Celeste, because Black Celeste, as we discussed on our YouTube videos, which, by the way, the people on, I've realized the people on our figs and were just recently complaining that I was getting such high prices on my fig trees. I realized reading through the thread is that not a single person in the thread had even watched any of my Black Celeste videos, where I literally break down. And by the way, it's in the listing on my fig bid listing. It's in the damn thing. Like, look, this is it right here. Here's the video, YouTube. I have been talking about this fig to you guys for months in so many different ways that I feel like I am doing it, I'm overkilling it at this point. I'm doing the fig an injustice because I've been talking about it so much. Here's one right here. Black Celeste, my favorite Celeste heirloom. Here's the first video that we did. In this particular video, 2 months ago, we mentioned, hopefully this loads, I'm not sure if it is, we mentioned that this particular fruit is different than any other of the Celeste strains, and it's not even a close thing. Like, it's not even like what John Verdict here was saying, in that he's saying that they're all genetically the same fruit with very minor differences. This is not, only has Celeste in the name and in the shape. It does taste, I would say, rather similar. But it's so genetically different. It's so, when you observe it, it's so different that it only really is in name. And I've discussed this many, many times. But the people who apparently, like to basically bash me or hate on me, as I've said this many, many times, they are ignorant. They don't understand that I've made these statements. I have documented this. I have literally talked about these figs for so many hours at this point. Because there's also this other video. It's called "This Fig is Absurd," and it is. It was absurd. We talked about it on our blog. Then we talked about the genetic. If I do another search. An ode to the genetic diversities of figs and a thank you is the other video that we did. So there's this one right here. Right there is Black Celeste in this particular video. Here's the one about the fig is absurd. And by the way, I took so many photos of this fruit. I talked about this fruit so much, I feel like, at this point. I'm beating a dead horse. Here's the first one I got. By the way, wasn't even that great of a representation of the fruit until later I found out how amazing it actually is. And in this Black Celeste video, I was pretty, really not really saying too much highly about it, actually, I think, at this point, because I didn't really know too much about it. It was like the first one I had. So all these people really are talking out of their you-know-what and have literally no idea about this fruit. Don't understand that it is actually very special. So that's why I'm doing this right now. We're going to clear this all up for all of you guys. So it is extremely different. Number one, that's the first point. The second point I want to make is that the pigmentation in the fruit is consistent. It is so consistent that every single fruit, other than like the first fruit, the first one or two fruits, when I was learning how to actually harvest the fruit, learning how long I should let it hang, when it's actually ripe, every single fruit, it didn't matter what time of the year it was, even into October, the fruit looked like that, even into very cold temperatures. And if I actually had any fruits on my tree right now, I bet you any amount of money that it would also be like that. So here's actually a good idea. This is the first fruit that I harvested off the tree. Here are the next couple fruits. Look at the pigmentation. It's not really there. Why? Because I picked the fruit a little too early. What's weird about this is that you can see the cracking on the skin, and it looks actually like it's ripe. But the more and more you let it hang, the more and more you let it shrivel, like any of these other figs for the most part, you're going to see a big difference in the quality. So this is what you're going to get. And here's a good idea, actually, of what the fruit should look like before you pick it. You see, notice how it's actually hanging. The stem, basically, it's barely hanging onto the stem here at this point. The neck is totally bent down towards the ground. The neck is very soft. You see the cracking in the fruit. This fruit here is on its way to being dried, which is truly amazing. Because this fruit, here's my second point, or my third point, excuse me, is that it has unbelievable drying capabilities. And I don't know just yet how good it is compared to Verdino del Nord, Nerucciolo de Elba. That is the single reason, well, it's really the largest reason, let's say, that those two fruits are my top two fruits. Because they can dry here on the tree without actually spoiling. They can dry here on the tree even through moisture and rain and nasty, horrible weather. They're incredible, those fruits. They also have a very, very short hang time. So not only can you pick them early if you wanted to, but even if you let them hang on the tree, the rain and most things are not going to destroy those fruits. It's the same thing with Black Celeste. It has a pretty short hang time, and the drying capabilities are quite good. Now, I don't think it's on the level of Verdino del Nord or Nerucciolo de Elba, but here's where it actually really takes off, and what we talked about in this other blog post that we did, where we talked about in the last live stream that we did, the new standout fig varieties from 2021, as I said down here at the bottom, that maybe I didn't mention it here on the post, but I did mention it in the stream. Oh, actually, I did right here. So it says right here, I think, here, I said it exactly right here. Verdino del Nord and Nerucciolo de Elba have superior drying capabilities and will resist all the damage from moisture, but the skin on Black Celeste enables it to take very little damage to begin with. It's been amazing to observe this variety along with other strains of Celeste, but I've noticed particularly on this variety how well the fig is unaffected by moisture. It's quite incredible. The skin is really something interesting that I'm going to be paying attention to next year with all the fruits. This is where I think I can really learn something about these varieties. Instead of just how rare the fig is or how good the fig tastes, or like any other of the stupid characteristics people pay attention to. How's the skin on it? Does the skin affect how well it absorbs moisture or how well it sheds moisture? How is the skin in relation to when the fruit expands in its final stage of ripening and starts to turn color? Where in that particular stage does the skin actually give enough to let it expand so that it doesn't crack or the skin doesn't explode, it doesn't split, it doesn't fissure, whatever you want to call it? There are certainly different skin types that I've noticed in these fruits, in these figs, that really have very different characteristics in those main things that I just mentioned, particularly in the expansion of the fruit. That's why you'll see a lot of like Black Mission figs. They tend to crack a lot along the side and have these large cracks in them because the skin on, let's say, a Black Mission, it's just kind of rubbery in a sense. Like it has this, and I don't really even know how to really describe most of these skin types just yet. But some of them have a very, very hard skin that seems to give and is very elastic. And that's kind of, I think, really what I'm looking for. Because that really hard skin, I noticed, is on Verdino del Nord. And that a lot of insects and even birds, it seems like it's quite difficult to penetrate through the fig. And I had so many fruit flies this year. The only fig that was unaffected by rain and fruit flies this year to like 100% degree was Black Celeste. And I don't even care at this point. If people don't agree with me, I don't really even care because I know how amazing this fig is. If you don't want to grow it, then that's a shame on you because literally I just feel bad for you at that point. Like, it's so special, this fruit. And I know that it's going to be around for a very long time. That actually, my current thoughts on this is that I probably will have many trees of it in the future. And what I've learned this year about all these fruit flies is that if you have trees or varieties that are really well affected or affected highly by these fruit flies, because whether they have an open eye, maybe they split, then it's quite obvious to me that those figs attract a lot of those fruit flies, and they just cause a bunch of headaches. Whereas if, let's say, I had a whole area of my yard that was only Black Celeste, or let's say I had another area of my yard that was only Verdino del Nord or only Nerucciolo de Elba, how much fruit fly pressure would I have in that particular area? I don't think it'd be very high. It's truly amazing, I think, what this fig can do. And people you can only lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? My Italian grandfather says that literally all the time. And all I've ever done on this channel is try to tell you guys the things that I like so that you can enjoy them too. That's all I've ever done. I'm going to be honest. I try to teach you guys what I know, but most of the time it's just pure and utter excitement for something that I really like that I just want to share with somebody. And typically, whether it's a girlfriend or a friend or a family member, they don't care about this stuff. They don't really have the bug like we have. And me telling them just doesn't do it justice. I need to get it out somewhere to you guys to, let you guys know that this is so amazing. Like, if there was something that you guys wanted to tell me that you experienced was so special and you said, Ross, you got to do this thing. I really like this thing. I would love to do it. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear why you think this particular way, because honestly, there's probably something to it. So that's pretty much why I do this. I don't know how often I have to really explain this, because people still are considerably more and more ignorant about myself and what we're doing here on this YouTube channel, that it just drives me insane. Like, it would be one thing if I actually did something wrong and they were right and they were justified in their actual thoughts, but they just continue to be ignorant. It just blows my mind about it. Just the whole world is ignorant. And I don't know everything, okay? I'm not claiming to know everything, guys, about figs. I know someone's going to be like, oh, Ross is just so, full of himself and all this crap. Get over yourself. Seriously. All right, so now we're done with that. Black Celeste, it's over. I think it's amazing. Grow it or don't grow it. I don't care. Really, it doesn't matter to me. At some point in the future, what I know is that the better figs will last and the worse figs won't. So eventually, years from now, you will see this fruit all over the place. I'm going to make it my mission to give this particular variety to a bunch of mail order nurseries actually in the future. I'm going to make it my mission to spread this variety around to as many people as possible. I do also want to mention one other person too. My friend Brian, Cajun Bee down in Louisiana. He's probably watching right now. He had also really highly recommended this. So on my Celeste journey, after I sort of saw the photos from Paulie in British Columbia, I realized how amazing this fig was. And then my buddy Brian, who's been growing Black Celeste for years, then pretty much confirms what I had thought was going to be about this fruit. Turns out it's more amazing than I think even Brian was giving it credit for. I think this fig is truly special. It's just mind-blowing, I think. None of the other LSU figs, by the way, come even close to the amount of moisture or to the level that this fig can repel moisture, not absorb the moisture in the skin, and not split. I haven't come across a single one that does nearly as well as this. Even Hardy Chicago doesn't do as well. Campanieri doesn't do as well. So many of my other varieties that I hold so dearly, if you look at my list here, none of these figs do as well, other than maybe Neruccio de Elba and Verdino del Nord. The other ones are either like a step below, or, you know, a lot of the other ones, and I would say 99.9% of all fig varieties, not even in the same class. Not even in the same class of a fig. There's so much crap that's being sold and has been propagated and spread around the fig communities for years. It just blows my mind that people just can't recognize a good thing when they see it. Anyway, all right, I'm done. I'm done with that. I just wanted to give a shout out to Brian, because Brian was really one that deserves a lot of credit for this particular variety as well. And that he was one that really, with growing it for a long time, was a big proponent of it. You didn't hear much about this fruit, and really it was only Paulie and Brian that had any sort of information on it. And until I came along, you know, no one had even any idea about this fruit. And now everyone's like, oh, it's just a Celeste, you know, like, so whatever. You can believe it's a Celeste. I don't care. Don't grow it. You know, it's no skin off my back. Don't grow it. Don't buy it. Don't grow it. Probably be less headache for me, honestly. And by the way, now that we're done with all this chat about the haters, leave me alone. You know, I left the fig communities for a reason. You guys you're scum. You know, leave me alone. I don't have to, you know, I left you guys for a good reason. And it's just funny that more and more people are contacting me like on a weekly basis and saying, Ross, yeah, I guess you were right. All right, so what do we got here in the chat? If you guys want to have any questions, like I said this in the beginning, but put them down in the chat. That way I'll get back to them at the end of this video when we do the Q&A. Adrian said, how am I doing? Phil said, what's up, Ross? I do want to mention this before we go any further, is that I have been feeling the best I have felt physically, mentally, overall health in a very, very long time. I would say since I was about 20 years old, maybe even younger than that. And I'm 30 years old now, and I feel the best I ever have. And there's a few things that I've been doing that, again, this brings back to the point I was making, that if there's something good that I think I'm enjoying in life, something I really like, something very positive, I want to share it with you guys. All we talk about is figs. I mean, and other fruits and vegetables as well. But, you know, I do think this is really important. And I do think that there's a lot of people out there who are not very healthy, that are suffering, that should listen to, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but some of the things I have to say could be applicable to your life, you know. And if you're willing to take the advice or not, that's okay. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to get offended. But I will say that we talked, you know, like a year ago, more, I think, at this point, in an episode of this live stream or of our podcast, and we were mentioning that I stopped eating gluten and dairy. And that was a big one, and we talked about functional medicine, and I even raised some money actually and donated to a charity that's involved with functional medicine, actually making doctors more aware of functional medicine. As I said in that time as well, I learned about Dr. Mark Hyman, found functional medicine, and it was a huge change in my life and in my health. From that point, I was still not 100%. I still was having some issues here and there. I started sleeping better with actually some things that I've been doing, and I don't want to really discuss that too much just yet because I don't think I have enough time with it personally. I also have been seeing a chiropractor, and I know chiropractors have a bad rap, and there's a lot of bad ones out there, and you got to find one that really knows what they're doing. But I've been seeing a client of mine who is really a good family friend. He's actually been helping out my mom for years. And I don't want to get too much into her, but I realized after seeing him and him doing some X-rays and him doing some thermal image scans on my spine that my spine was out of whack. My neck was actually didn't have that C curve in it that it needs to have. In fact, it was actually forward. And my neck, because the way that I understand it is that your brain sends all these signals down through your spinal cord, and then from the spinal cord, it has all these nerves that go out to all different parts of your body. So if you, as an example, have a spinal cord that's messed up, or if you have the nerves from the spinal cord that are out of whack, or maybe there's some pressure put on them, maybe you have a pinched nerve, maybe you have this, maybe you have that, whatever it is, some of your organs and some of the things in your body may not be operating properly because they're just not getting the signal that they need. And I made that connection as they've been really, a lot of health professionals have been making more and more nowadays, is that your gut is connected to your brain, right? There's that brain-gut connection. But what people don't realize, I think, necessarily, or at least put too much stock into this, is that your brain is also connected to your gut. It's the same way around also applies. So as an example, I was having some vagus nerve problems, and I was getting really stressed. I didn't have great digestion. My blood sugar was really out of whack. I had a bunch of, I could probably name you 10 different problems that were just very strange and were really stemming from my neck. And I've been seeing this guy that really made a very few adjustments that are very precise, not the constant cracking and pulling and torquing of your body, but very, very precise, accurate adjustments that after looking at the x-rays, after a few months now, it really does show, at least theoretically, that this has been a big help towards my health. So I wanted to mention that to you guys. I have also been taking the CPA exam, as a lot of you guys know, and I just took the last one today. So part of the reason why I wanted to do this live stream is because I'm very excited now to potentially be very much so done with this exam. I don't know if I passed. I won't know until the 23rd, so we have some time. So, I don't want to count my chickens just yet, as they say, right? But I'm I'm feeling very confident, at least, that if I don't get it this time, I'll get it very soon. And so I'm very excited to be looking forward to the future of what my life is going to be like in the next 6 months. This is truly an extremely exciting time in my life. This feels more exciting than even going to college, or going your first day of high school or your first day of college. This is like a whole new chapter of my life that I really want to make some interesting changes, and a lot of things that I put to the side, like you guys, this channel, I've had to put to the side this whole last year or more. So a lot of this is going to be a change, not just for myself, but for you guys as well. And that there's going to be a lot more to continue. And as I've said in other videos and other things, I'm going to buy a farm, very soon. And, I think people, again, still, they just, they demonize you for making money in a hobby. Of growing figs. They demonize you. But, I'm trying to buy a farm. I'm 30 years old. I'm single. I live with my parents, people. I live literally here in my parents' house. This is my childhood bedroom that I'm in right now. I have this dream of buying a farm, and this dream of starting a commercial fig orchard, and this dream of having this very specific life. And it's so hard for so many people in many walks of life I'm lucky to be in the situation that I'm in, but it's really difficult for so many people in so many walks of life to even be able to afford land, to have land. How many people are lucky right now in the chat to even have even just an acre of land, And I made, luckily, some very good decisions throughout my life. Living at home was definitely one of them. Saving up. And now I'm going to be able to buy a farm. And all the support that you guys have given me over the years, all of the plants and cuttings and things that I've sold that I was very against in the beginning, even selling, and very skeptical to even think that whether or not I should, has actually helped quite a bit towards that process. And it's going to hopefully continue in that direction this season, this winter. We got a lot of trees to bear root. In fact, now that I'm done with the exam today, tomorrow I'm going to be outside all day. This weekend I'm going to be outside all day. And I'm going to be taking off a lot of air layers. I'm going to be bare rooting roughly 50 or so trees, and we're going to be selling those guys to you on FigBid. So, you know, I don't know what else to say. I just think, you know, I have paid my dues to the fig community. Every day I pay my dues on this channel. Every single day. I'm more for this hobby than any other single American fig grower in the fig community. I promise you that. So to attack me, I don't understand it, but people are just ignorant, as I said. Okay, so what are some of the things? Oh, I do want to mention one other variety before we continue, because there are some really good ones that we're going to talk about in the next live stream, I think. But I must say, guys, that I have been really impressed by a fig that I was just very impressed with it in general. But Morro De Caneva, if I had to really tell you guys about one fig variety that did really well this year, other than Black Celeste, this was the best producer by far compared to any other variety. It produced more fruit at a high quality, and the largest fruit at a high quality is the Morro De Caneva. I picked more fruits off of this tree, off of this variety. And I do have a lot of them in the ground that are mature, so it's kind of, maybe my views are a little skewed, but almost none of them split. They do, and they can get affected by the fruit flies. So it's not like it's immune to the fruit flies. But what's nice about it is that you can pick this fig rather early, and it's still good before the fruit flies really start to get at it and start to ferment the fruit. So even if you pick the fruit a little bit early, what I've been doing, and we're going to talk about this actually very soon here on the channel. I may even put this video out tomorrow or on Saturday. But if you put the figs in the fridge, guys, you lay them out on a plate or a tray. You cut the figs in half, and you put the figs on the plate, skin side down. And you lay them out in the fridge. They will start to dry up in the fridge. And even if you pick them a little bit early, I found they are very, very, very good. Because they turn into like this fig candy consistency. And here's actually a Smith that was in my fridge in the same way that I just described for like a week or two. It doesn't take too long, but I find that when you dry them in the dehydrator, or if you dry them in the oven, they kind of, if it's too warm, they kind of get this burnt like taste. You know, that's obviously it's probably too hot at that point. This year I did. Trying to put my oven this year, experimenting with it on the lowest temperature, which was 170, and it just kind of gave some of the figs on the skin a little bit of a burnt flavor, which I didn't really like. The inside is a similar consistency to what you get in the fridge when you dry them like this. The difference is one takes 2 weeks and the other one takes like a day or two, you know, but I think it really does matter about that temperature. So if I can get a dehydrator that's probably going to dehydrate them at like 90 degrees Fahrenheit rather than like 115, which I think my Nesco is what that's doing. I think it's still too much at that point. You really want to make this a very, very slow process, and I'm going to consider investing in a heavier duty or a much more expensive but better featured dehydrator for some of the fruit that I grow. So that's That's the deal with this, and I highly recommend that you guys do this. Morro De Caneva, I've been doing the same thing, and they do this really well. So even if you pick them early, you cut them in half, you put them flat with the skin side down, they actually turn out really well. Really impressed with that variety, more so than ever. You know, it is a commercial variety, and it's like, duh, it's a commercial variety for a reason. I mean, these people know what they're talking about, you know. The same thing with Black Celeste, or any of these other varieties that, let's say, are old or very common, or let's say they are the standards, or they have it, you know, selling them a lot at, you know, mail order nurseries. There's a reason for that. We don't need to be going out and finding all these different seedlings. Yeah, they all were at one point a seedling. They all at one point were also, by the way, a seedling, but selected over many hundreds of years. So, you know, why waste those many hundreds of years is my point. And Morro De Caneva clearly was chosen to be a commercial fig for a reason, and I clearly see why. It's got a good size to it. I would say a lot of them are in like the mid-size range in terms of size, mid to large almost. And again, they just produce a ton of fruit very easily, very rain resistant, and you can even pick them early if you wanted to, and they're still going to taste rather good. Yeah, Brian, don't worry, bud. You're joining in right at the right time anyway. The beginning was a mess, so we talked mostly about Black Celeste so far, and we talked about some things that are going on in my life, which is also rather kind of boring. And then now we're talking a little bit about Morro De Caneva, a variety that really has impressed me so far. Again, anyone has any comments? I see a bunch of a couple questions so far. If you have any more questions, put them down in the chat, and I'll get back to it at the end because we're gonna do like a Q&A. Now, I do want to mention at the end of this video, to wrap this whole thing up now before we do the Q&A, is that we're going to talk about some wintertime prep. And some of you guys, we're going to have a video out on this as well, but I'm sure a lot of you guys are getting antsy. A lot of you guys, unfortunately, maybe watching right now, you don't need to do any wintertime prep. So I'll just preface this by saying, if you live in probably like a zone 8 where it doesn't really drop below 15 degrees Fahrenheit, probably wouldn't do anything to your figs. I wouldn't even bother. You don't need to. So if the wintertime, you look up your hardiness zone, plant hardiness zones. You go to the USDA's website here. You put in your zone. I'm sure everybody knows this at this point. You guys are usually pretty advanced, my audience. But yeah, you'll see it here where it is. So if you basically are in a warm zone A, or a warm zone 8A, or if you're in a colder 8B, you're only going to see about 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Even a little bit less than that, you really don't have to worry too much. So I wouldn't really worry and be concerned at all with your fig trees in those particular climates. In fact, we'll talk about a couple of the temperatures that you really need to pay attention to. But I do want to bring your attention to a blog post here, the Fig Tree Timeline. This is the post that you can always go back to, guys, anytime you want if you're ever lost. At what point of the season, should I be doing what? You know? So, as an example, the chiropractor that I see, he also grows figs, by the way. He is really into figs. And he was mentioning to me in my last adjustment that he was saying that he was bringing his trees in before the frost that was coming like last week or week and a half ago. And I was like, no. You don't want to do that. You know, so after him giving me all this advice about my health, I repaid him the favor with all this fig knowledge and basically told him, you know, like, hey, you want them to get hit by the frost. You want them to go dormant. There is such a huge biological advantage by doing that in the spring when they wake up and they put out their new growth, it's so strong and healthy and vigorous that you get a lot more fruits and you get them at an earlier date. You know, the people in Malaysia, unfortunately, are growing them in tropical places. they never have a dormancy period. The trees never go dormant, and it's amazing that they're able to do what they can do to get them to fruit. But it just is such a huge advantage if you have that with these trees. I mean, most deciduous trees drop their leaves, put their growth out in the spring, and that's such a nice benefit to the overall kind of health of the tree, getting it going, making sure that it's productive every year. I don't know, at least in the fig tree's case, deciduous trees should go deciduous, right? They should lose their leaves. I think that's pretty, it's like, it would be like a human not going to sleep every night. You're just not going to function very well. All right, so that's really important. And a couple of the temperatures I want you guys to know about, because we're going to get to this hardiness zone map in a second. There are 2 temperatures that you need. Tony, I don't recommend you do that. Don't use a vacuum sealer for your cuttings. You eliminate all the air in the vacuum sealed bag, and the cuttings tend to go anaerobic, and they rot, and they die. I've seen it so many times. I don't understand why some growers continue to sell cuttings like that. It's a horrible, horrible idea, but there is one grower in particular who does that. I don't know why. And every time I've gotten cuttings from him that come like that, they're just ruined. So anyway, back to the temperature thing. There's 2 temperatures you guys need to know. We have one temperature for the roots and one temperature for the branches. So the roots, we'll talk about this really quickly. If the root temperatures get below about 14, maybe even slightly lower, maybe you could go down to 10. I don't really know because I've only tested it down to 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Not last Thanksgiving, but the Thanksgiving before, it was 14 degrees Fahrenheit here in the Philadelphia area at night. And because I was so full, we traveled that day. I came back home, realized how cold it was going to be, and I just said, I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to leave them out there all wintertime. The potted trees sat outside in 14 degrees Fahrenheit. None of them took any damage, whether that was from the roots or from the tops. They're going to be totally fine. So what does that mean, right? In the case of my chiropractor who brought his trees in before the frost, actually he brought them back out now since I straightened them out. But that means you don't have to worry about moving your potted trees until you see a temperature of 14 degrees Fahrenheit, right? So if you have, as an example, hundreds of trees that you need to move, and everyone seems to be in such a rush to move them, you don't want to do that. You don't need to do that. There's plenty of time. Here in my location, in the Philadelphia area, I don't move my trees away until about mid-December. Again, Thanksgiving was a big deal, but I don't foresee seeing a lower temperature than 14 degrees by Thanksgiving. And then, you have about mid-December that you might see something lower than 15 degrees, maybe even Christmas time. So there hasn't been too many people who have experimented with that number other than myself. You're welcome. You heard it here first, okay? You can sleep soundly. You don't have to stress over this crap. Now, that's the root temperature. What that means is that if you have your tree planted above grade, like I suggest you guys do for almost everybody in this country, plant your tree in a mound that's a foot to 2 feet high. Plant the fig tree in that mound above grade with most of the root ball above grade. Your tree's going to be better off, in my opinion, for most of us. Not all of us, most of us. And additionally, the problem is, though, when you do that, is that now your fig tree is going to kind of act like it's in a container. And if you were to leave your container fig outside all wintertime, as I mentioned just now, and the temperature dips below 14 degrees Fahrenheit, that's not good. So you have to insulate the soil. You have to put down mulch. If you want to have the best fig tree possible, you need to plant it above grade for the majority of us. If you're going to plant it above grade, you need to have the knowledge and know that you have to insulate the soil. You have to cover it with straw, with mulch, wood chips, leaves, tarps, whatever. That will keep the soil warm, even though the soil is so high above grade. I've tested it myself. I've overwintered fig trees in raised beds that were a foot high. They had wooden sides to them. And the roots were fine. The trees had lived. In fact, that winter, I think we saw, I even documented it, I think on the blog, if I'm not mistaken. It probably was one of the first things I posted about. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah. Fig tree planting depth and height. I know we did experiments with it, and we talked about this on the YouTube channel. And this was years ago. So if you don't go back and find these videos years ago, then, you know, it's a big deal. Here it is right here. So in Zone 7A, the Philadelphia area, we had a 2-degree low, 2-degree Fahrenheit low in the winter of 2018, 2019. 2 of my trees, one of which was a white Marseille, one was a Teramo, as you can see here, Teramo unknown, which was planted 100% above grade in a raised bed that was a foot high that had wooden sides to it. All I did was throw some straw on the top of the soil and around the sides of the raised bed, and it got through the wintertime. The top died because it was 2 degrees Fahrenheit, but the roots had lived and it resprouted, and I still have the tree today. So anyway, so that's really critical that people don't really know. Now, let's talk about the wood. Because some of you guys are worried about the wood. Again, if you don't see something below 15 degrees Fahrenheit in the wintertime, you really don't have to protect your trees at all. Now, if you have a variety like Smith or some other variety that's really just not hardy, above grade, by the way, Lee, just means above the soil level of your ground. So grade is just like another, it's just like a term for the level of your soil. So you can plant below grade, you can plant deeply, you could bury the stem of the fig tree actually very far below grade, and that was the general recommendation for people in colder climates. No wine tonight. We need to sleep well. I got my water, though. Or you can plant the tree above grade, Lee, which, as I said, has a huge metabolic advantage in the spring and in the fall. By planting the root ball above grade, it has access to warmer soil temperatures, which kickstarts the tree way into the metabolic rate it needs to be at a much earlier date. You get more figs and earlier figs. So again, back to the wood here really quickly. A variety like Smith that's not very hardy. And by the way, I don't personally, I've never tested this myself. This is only really the general consensus among the fig community that it's just not very hardy. Well, what are the reasons it's not very hardy? I mean, there's so many different reasons. Is it because it doesn't lignify well? Because it grows so much? Because in the climates where it typically is found and has been found for many years, like in the South, you typically have a lot of water. And when your figs grow throughout the summer, they don't lignify by the fall in preparation for the winter. If they don't lignify, they're not going to be very hardy. So all this really makes sense. It's not just about the variety itself. It's about also the level of lignification of the branches. So is Smith indeed a very unhardy variety? I don't know, but let's just say it's not very hardy. Well, a variety like that is going to be very sensitive to a temperature of about 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Although I've tested it actually at 14 degrees Fahrenheit, so that doesn't really make sense. But you could make an argument that some varieties, just very, very few varieties, won't do well at 15 degrees Fahrenheit. And you know what? If you're in Florida, you're in Louisiana, you're in somewhere that gets a ton of rain and it's in the South, and your trees just grow and grow and grow and grow all summer, like I said, and they're not lignified, well, you could have temperatures of like 25 that could damage your trees. That could do some sort of damage. I mean, not kill them. But I have tested here, a fully lignified Smith will not take damage at 14 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so then let's bring it down to most varieties. The average variety is going to be able to survive about 10 degrees Fahrenheit actually just fine without any negative effects, without any damage. That's my estimate. And the average variety is about 50% of the varieties, right? So if you bring it down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, then you're looking at maybe, I would say, 10 to 15% of all fig varieties that exist have the potential to survive 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And then a much smaller amount, maybe less than 0.5% of fig varieties that exist will survive 0 degrees Fahrenheit or something below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, really does depend on the level of lignification. So you could live in a climate like my own, by the way. There is a hardy Chicago tree. I'm not even kidding. Hardy Chicago tree, literally right over there. It's like not even a mile away. There's 2 of them. One is planted against a house. One of them's out in the open of a field. It's literally right down the street. I could walk there. And both of them survive the winter without any damage. And we get to 0 degrees Fahrenheit here every 3 years. Once every 3 years, about. So that means to me, and I've had trees myself that have survived here. There are people in the area that have trees that survive here. My next door neighbor that literally lives this way has a number of fig trees in the ground that survive every year. So even at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, you can have fig trees survive, okay? So this is what I'm getting to, is that the people who need to listen to this typically are in a colder zone 7A or below. So if you're in a 4, a 5, a 6, or a cold zone 7A, the rest of you guys, which if you look at this thing on the map, you cut the country in half basically here. Here's this line, kind of in a sense, that comes around like this lime green line. That's about half the country, or maybe a little bit more than half the country. You don't have to do any protection. So it's really just us that really are in this crappy cold places. Now, if you're in, like I said, you got the variety, you should know realistically what temperature it can handle. Is it in the 15 degree range, the 10 degree range, the 5 degree range, the 0 degree range? You know what hardiness zone you're in. Then do you need to do anything? That's the question. You always need to protect the roots below 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a great idea. But for the wood, here are some of your options. If you're one of those people that actually needs to do something, I would not bother until you start to see temperatures in the 10-day forecast that look like you could very easily start to see temperatures that could do some damage in the fall. And actually, this is really typically a good time of the season where you may start to see some damage come in, because a lot of times, especially this year, we've had such an Indian summer where the fall has been kind of an extended summer, and then all of a sudden a big hard freeze comes in and really does some damage. But if it's more gradual and you have such a gradual dormancy period, maybe you have a light frost. Then you have maybe a little bit more of a frost. Then you have a hard frost. Then you have a really bad freeze. That consecutive, ease into that makes this a lot more manageable for your trees. But the fact that this year, again, we've had such a longer extended season, you could potentially see a situation, right, where, well, maybe we will get a really hard freeze that comes in and really shocks the trees, and in which case it's not a good idea. The general recommendation at that point would be, if you're going to take some cuttings, probably do it before that point. Or if you need to wrap your tree, probably do it before that point. But you don't want to wrap your tree too soon either, because if it's going to continue to be warm, you're going to kill your tree, believe it or not. Because all that warmth, when you have higher temperatures in the air, the microbes are starting to work, and mold is starting to work, and fungus is starting to work. in the dead of winter, there's very little, there's such a smaller chance of mold or fungus or microbes even just breaking down soil or breaking down organic material into soil. So it's the same thing with our trees, right? Is that, and even the sap flow, I think, plays a big part of this. It's so much harder to really rot your tree, I think, in the I don't know actually, but I imagine it would be a little bit more difficult because if you have that sap flow, maybe it has just a stronger immune system. Maybe it's awake and it really knows what it should be doing at that time of the year, protecting itself. But in the winter, it's dormant. There's no sap flow. You know, it's probably more susceptible to these things. So just in a sense that if you put the wrapping on too soon, it's too warm, you could pay for it later at the end of the year. It's better to wait, maybe wrap your trees and then unwrap them after a really hard freeze. Let them do their thing for a bit, and then when you finally get something rather significant again, then consider wrapping them. For me, I'm not going to really wrap any of them until, again, about mid-December when I start to see that 15-degree low. If I saw something really significant very quickly, then that would be a really good sign, at least for me, that I should act sooner rather than later. Again, we don't want to shock them. We want to have a gradual increase in cold if we can. All right, so that really kind of wraps that up. And then the options really are wrapping them. As I said, we can cut them back, throw tarps over them. We can cut them back, throw mulch over them, then the tarps on them. We can also do limb bending, which is really what my big plan is this year, is we're going to be bending a lot of the limbs, and I'm going to be talking about this actually in a separate video where we have all of the varieties, or we're going to talk about all the in-ground trees, that I have, and talking about the low tunnels. Actually, we're going to finally update you guys on the tunnels, updating you on what my idea is for next year, how we're going to be doing this limb bending, what my thought process this whole time, at least leading up to this point, was, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. Those are your real options right there. Does anyone have any questions about winter protection? Let me know. You know, I didn't really explain too much into detail of some of the options that you can take. So if someone's trying to figure out, you know, which method should I do of winter protection, or what this should I do, then let me know. You know, I'll explain more. But let me go now into the chat, guys. If you have any questions, put them in there. Whatever it is you want to know. It can be anything unrelated to figs. Maybe it's a different fruit, different vegetable. Whatever it is. We're not just growing figs here, guys, you know, although this talk was all about figs. Leslie, what's going on? Nasser, how you doing? Daniel, good to see you. Richard, hello. Angela, hello. Janudi, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Hopefully I'm getting it right. How you doing? Phil, how's it going? Adrian, hello. Chris, what's going on, Chris? Fig Tree, hello from Ukraine. Hello from Pennsylvania. Jermican, is that how you say it? What's up, everyone? How's it going? Daniel, hello. AM said, keep up all the excellent work. Thank you, AM. Thank you for all the support, man. You've been here a long time. Hello from Singapore. Hello, MT. So, Jermican said, are there any similarities between, or differences between Noir De Barbantain and Noir De Malone? Yeah, there is. Quite a bit. Noir De Barbantain is a lot like a Borges Saut Noir or a Borgiotto Nero, however you'd like to say it in whatever language you'd want to say it in. But Noir De Barbantain, as Bode has described it, you can go to Bode's website here, fig-bode.com. You go to his catalog, you go to the fig tree section, and you can see Noir De Barbantain, and then you translate the thing here. This is where this fig comes from, I believe, is Bode. I think he was the one really who made it popular. And basically, what he's saying and what really the truth is about it is that it's like a hardy Chicago type of Bourgeois Saut Noir, right? So there are many strains and similar figs to Bourgeois Saut Noir. It is a commercial fig. It's actually quite a popular commercial fig and a very good one. So you would think, of course, there's going to be very similar figs to that. It's going to be all over Europe. It's going to be all over the United States. And there's going to be many, many names for the same thing. Noir De Barbantain basically is the same thing. He says it here. It's very similar, greater precocity, and better resistance to humidity. So far, I don't know if that's the truth. What I can tell you is that this fig and Bourgeois Saut Noir taste very similar to a Black Madeira or an Italian 258. They have a very good flavor profile that's very intense, very complex, very sweet, blow you away kind of flavor profile. I have never tasted Noir de Boulogne, but if you also go on his website, just hit the back button, you will see Boulogne. And here are the details on Boulogne. And this is a fig that really I don't think gets any credit or enough credit at all. I think this fig does resemble the Salato that I grew this year. You can see it kind of has the dots. There's these white specks on the skin, and the colors of the skin is typically has this green undertone with these black overtones as it ripens. The fruit is very thick, I've heard and I've read, in that it has a very, very good flavor profile. I wouldn't say probably on the level of a complex, Bourgeois Saut Noir or Noir de Barbantain, but I'm sure it tastes very good. I'm sure it's very sweet. But the texture is really where it's at. This also, I believe, is a commercial fruit. So it has many uses. It checks all the boxes, It's a very, very good piece of fruit. I don't know why people aren't growing more of it. I have had a couple trees of it and killed them, and I've been trying like you wouldn't believe to grow this particular fruit. It's a very, very good one. I would probably recommend Boulogne for my climate over Noir de Barbantain. I've noticed so far Noir de Barbantain needs a lot of light to set the fruits. I can't really tell you how early it is, but I imagine it's probably on the later side, whereas this Boulogne is more of an earlier ripening, mid-season-ish fruit. And that's actually kind of what Salato is. It ripens mid-season. So Daniel said, so interesting that the DNA can be so the same, yet the results of each plant can be so different. Yeah, I mean, what if, some of the genetics are just turned on and off, right? Just like us as humans. I may have the same genetics maybe as an identical twin, if I had an identical twin, but why are identical twins different? A lot of the times our genes can turn on and off and show different expressions. I also, let's say, am slowly evolving to my environment. So if my identical twin lived in the desert, very hot and dry place, they're going to be a little bit different than myself, although we don't really evolve that quickly, I imagine. But, you kind of get the point, right? And even, let's say, and as it sort of slowly adapts, I'm sure the genetic code probably changes, right? I don't know if that's true or not, but I imagine that if you had one hardy Chicago, or let's say use the identical twin situation, right? I guess my genes won't change. My identical twin's genes won't be different over in Arizona, assuming we both evolved, right? But certainly, the genes would change, right? They would show a different expression, would they not? They wouldn't. The genes wouldn't change. I don't know. Someone with a DNA, someone with a degree, speak up right now. All right. Susie's Home Garden in New York City. What's going on? Oh, thank you, Susie. I've been seeing your comments recently. She has a 15-year-old fig tree, and this year was a great year. That's awesome. In New York City, you can really grow some nice figs there. What's going on? I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. It's not in English, so I apologize. Daniel said, yeah. Hi, James, what's going on? How you doing? Joan, hello. Okay, so you want me to talk about the one fig. So the one fig is just a very a favorite fig of my friend Bill. I talk to Bill all the time, actually. He's a very good person. And Bill actually selling the one fig, by the way, if anyone's interested. I'm trying to liquidate all my trees right now, and that's why at the end of the season we talked about recently on the blog. We said that we're selling some trees because I'm trying to just get rid of some stuff. I have too many trees to store and take care of this winter that I'd rather just kind of get rid of them as much as I can. So I haven't not been offering them up for auction. Some people really got on me about that in the fig community. But again, they're just ignorant. They don't understand. They didn't see this. So we're trying to liquidate things. And even it's weird because people complain about when you set things for auction, they go for crazy prices. And they're like, why don't you just list it for a buy it now price? And then they're just going to complain again that I'm listing it for a buy it now price. I think people just like to really just hate on me in general. It's really sad. But we're going to be listing, as I said, a lot of these bare-rooted trees for buy it now prices like we've done all along. We've done this for years now. I don't know. No one really complains about that, so I'm sure somebody will. Here we have the one, though, and you can read down here. It's a favorite of my friend Bill B. And as I was talking about these different Celeste types, it is a type of Celeste. And originally we thought of it as a blue Celeste because the skin turns blue. But in actuality, it's probably just a standard Celeste, right? There really is no such thing as blue Celeste. Celeste and blue Celeste, as I've discussed earlier in this live stream, they're all the same thing with the same genetics showing different characteristics. But black Celeste is far vastly different than those figs. It does not share the same genetics. So that's just a favorite of his, you know? I mean, there's not really much to say about it. I can't really speak on it because I've had limited time with it. This is just an extra tree that I have that's going dormant. And I figured why not? If someone wants it, they can have it. If someone wants to follow along with this Celeste trial that I'm doing, where I'm trialing all these different strains. I have Stallion. I have Violet de Marseille. I have this one here, the one. I have a number of them. So if you want to be a part of that and you want to trial them along with me, then form your own opinion, then you can do that. You know, so that's just at least one man's opinion. Bill, a friend of mine, who found that this one was the best of the different figs that he's tried with Celeste tied to the name. There was another one that he really grew called Sturches, which I told him was also a Celeste. And that's kind of how he's been like kind of comparing some of these, is that he has a couple of these different figs that he's grown over the years with Celeste in the name, and then also Sturches. And this just was the one that he liked the most, which is why he named it the one. You know, it was the best one. Which I told him at the time was a pretty provocative name. I'm sure it's a very good fig. And I will say this, by the way. All the different blue Celestes or Celestes that I've tried do not taste the same as black Celeste. They taste similar. I don't think they're like totally different. Like, a honey fig versus a berry fig as an example. But they are different. You know, it's not like you're eating the same fruit either. So anyway, that's really all I know about it right now. I can't really comment. because I haven't had it long and I haven't really been able to compare a lot of these Celeste strains just yet. I'm finding that if I would have done some limb bending and instead of chopping them back to 6 to 12 inches, I would have much more success with these in-ground Celeste trees that I have. Or if I kept them in pots and compared them in pots to each other, I probably would have some sort of better idea at this point which one I'm really liking more than the other. Same thing with the Pastelliere strains. They're kind of struggling by cutting them back, and even where I've planted some of them, it just doesn't get enough light there, and they're not setting the fruit buds. So this trial is going to have to continue for many years, and people think, I'm going to know the answer right away. What I can tell you is that Black Celeste is far and away better than any other fig with Celeste or even Celeste or Celeste relative by far. Like, it's not even close. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And the only reason I know that is because I've ripened a lot of fruits from Black Celeste. I haven't ripened a ton of fruits from these blue Celeste types. Daniel said, still waiting on Verdino del Nords and Neruccio de Elba cuttings this year. Black Celeste started, but they're starting so slow so far. Pump for all three. So I'm not going to have Verdino del Nord cuttings, by the way. I want to mention we're just not going to have any available. My original mother tree died this winter. I planted it in the ground. It was a grafted tree, and I thought I could get away with that, and I planted a number of grafted trees. Even my Rosalino, I had to recover that variety. I had a few extra Verdino del Nords, fortunately. Actually, quite a few trees that I rooted this winter that I had as a backup. So we're kind of slowly building up. I may sell a couple cuttings, now that I think about it. But people are so just, like, insane with the whole cutting thing that, like, yeah, I don't know. People are just ridiculous, And what's weird about, I will say about Verdino del Nord and Neruccio de Elba, is that they don't produce wood that's very thick. They're just not vigorous varieties. They're some of the most dwarf varieties I grow. The definition of vigor is if you look at the diameter of the wood and you measure that and compare that to all the other trees, Neruccio de Elba, Verdino del Nord is going to have some of the thinnest wood every single time, every single year. So I don't want to hear people complain about some cuttings that go for $600 that's totally out of my control. And they're going to complain about, let's say, the thickness of the cuttings. Because that's definitely something I've heard, not in that particular situation, but from other particular people who have bought cuttings from me. I can't control the thickness of the wood, People are like, what am I, a magician or something? So Neruccio, I have heard that about Neruccio de Elba. At least one person, I think, complained that the wood was thin. But if you want the variety, you're going to get thin wood. There's no other way around it. That's just what the tree does, All right, so Jed says, I hate trying to explain to non-figaholics my addiction to growing fig trees. Yeah, I don't know. People, I just, I don't really even tend to really explain it to people that don't know anything about figs, because I feel like I'm just kind of wasting my time, There is a time and a place, I think. People want to know and they're very interested, and maybe that could spark some kind of comment, but in general, I think people are so unattached from nature nowadays, and where our food comes from, that it just kind of goes over their head. It's just so far out of their comprehension, I think. Jed said, is Trees of Joy where you got your original Black Celeste? No, actually. I didn't get it from Bass. I got my cuttings from Brian and also from Carla, Garden Crochet, or Cajun Bee. And they sell great cuttings, both of them. James says, yeah, you can't hold a few individuals that don't listen accountable when there's a silent majority already agreeing with you. Yeah, I don't know why people are silent, because if someone had just linked the video and said, hey, Ross had explained all the things that you guys are complaining about in this one video, then there wouldn't even have been, I think, such a big deal. But everyone just likes to rip on Ross for some reason. I don't get it. It's really sad, actually, that these people are so jealous for no reason. Like, there's no reason to be jealous, guys. There's really no reason. I'm an average, normal, everyday person. I'm a human being. I don't think people realize that either. You know, people either think you're amazing or they think you're the worst. There's very few people, and by the way, there's very few people who you see, not just myself. Even I do this sometimes. Let's say you have an idol or somebody that you really respect. Maybe it's an athlete. Maybe it's a president. Maybe it's somebody in politics. Maybe it's somebody, you know, a pastor, or maybe it's somebody in some walk of life that you respect. Well, you know, you have to really take that person with a grain of salt and realize that they're just a human being just like you. You know, there's no real reason to idolize them or even hate them, because you don't know them. You guys don't know me, unfortunately. I try to be as honest as I can, but there's the truth right there, is that you guys really don't know who I am as a person. You guys may have a good idea of who I am, right? But you really don't know until you actually have a conversation with me face to face, or you actually spend some time with me. You know, am I going to be the person who, you know, is a good friend? Am I going to be the person who's a good family member? Am I going to be the person who's a good member of society? Putting out videos doesn't really prove any of that. Either way, it doesn't prove that I am a good person or a bad person. And all these things that people bring up in the news media, and they try to destroy everybody and cancel people and things like that. You know, I typically tend to look at that stuff now and think, wow, you know, not that I'm famous or anything, but it really, I can very easily put myself in their shoes and realize that, like, holy crap, you know, this is just such a sad, really just a sad life that they're living. You know, like, to be truthfully honest with you guys, I don't want to do this, you know? I don't want to have even an online presence at all. I don't even want to be a public figure. I don't want to I don't want any of this attention. You know, I like growing figs, and that's literally it. I wanted to share that with people, and people took it to a whole nother level, and it made me think, not made me think, they then thought that I was some sort of fig celebrity. Like, what? Can I just be a normal person that also grows figs? Isn't that what I am? Anyway, I just keep ranting in this video, don't I? Daniel said, is there one male capper fig you think is the closest in line to the ideal fig type for your area further north? We'll love to breed that, plus some cold hardy north friendly breeds. Yeah, you know, Daniel, I have no idea. I mean, capper figs are so beyond my comprehension and scope right now. I have not paid attention really much of them at all. There's one variety, Bogo Milovo, that was given to me that is a very hardy capper fig. It's proven to be been quite hardy, and it's been proven really, at least so far, to produce a good amount of the capper figs. You know, maybe it doesn't produce all three of the crops. You really need multiple varieties if you're going to colonize the wasp. But in terms of breeding, I guess for cold hardiness, that's a decent one. Is it going to be one that's good for breeding? I don't know, because I think there's a whole separate category just for that. Like, some capper figs are better for breeding than others, not in the traits that they possess, but I think in some way that maybe it's the seeds or something I forget. I remember reading something at some point. It's so far out of my mind at this point. James said, Ross, I'm overwintering my fig trees in pots in my closet. with no light. I've heard a lot of people say that's what you do when they drop leaves, but I'm just wondering, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't know who told you that. This is the kind of thing you hear on ourfigs.com. This is exactly what the person, my chiropractor, did. Don't do that. He was trying to bring them in before they go dormant. This is the biggest mistake you can make. So even if people, as I'm going to say this in this video that's going to come out soon, even if it's January and your fig wakes up, put it outside and give it, let it, or I'm sorry, if it wakes up, not if it wakes up. If you realize that you're overwintering it this whole winter and you shouldn't have been doing that, like you just said, James, and it's January, you can still bring your fig tree outside and slowly let it get hit by a couple frosts and let it go dormant. It's not like it's over after you put all your fig trees away or something. You got a lot of winter to, let's say, make them go dormant. And that's essentially what I would recommend, is let them go dormant. There's a huge advantage to that. And also, you bringing your tree in the wintertime in your house is only going to probably make it worse than when you brought it in. So the state of your tree, unless you've really got a great light setup and you're really on top of the watering and you really want to make it grow, which I really just don't recommend. It's just an utter waste of your time. Just seriously, let it behave outside in full sun the way it was meant to. It's a lot less of a headache, a lot less stress. Again, you want it to go dormant because all that growth that you get on the wintertime is not going to be worth it because you're going to get a lot of growth the next season anyway. And because you didn't let it go dormant, you're going to lose out on a lot of growth, actually. And by the end of the day, it probably didn't even make a difference if you brought it in or not, had this crazy setup. Let's see here. Jed said, try the keto diet. It's amazing. I don't know. I think I eat too many foods, Jed, that would prevent me from getting into keto and staying into keto. I've gotten into keto before, very briefly, for a couple of days, and I thought it was great. I'm not going to lie, but I don't know if my diet allows me to do that. So I don't know. What do you think about that? I really should put more research into that. James said, nah, eat what you want and work out constantly. That's my experience going to yield better results than any diet. Yeah, I think it's the total opposite. But I also exercise a lot. So thank you, Janudi. Daniel said, yeah, I'm glad to hear things are lining up. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Jed. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just cannot pronounce your name. I don't know how to read that. Sorry. Joan said, thank you, Joan. Again, thank you guys. Thank you guys. King Tony says, I'm looking at farms now. We live in the same area. I found Montgomery County area has a lot of farmland. Yeah, Montgomery County, though, is really expensive. So, depends what you're willing to pay for, how much land you want. That's interesting, though, Tony, that you're also looking for farm in a similar area. I won't be looking, though, until about May. So, we still have a while to go. Jed said, an honest heart being the first blessing, a knowing head is the second. Thomas Jefferson. That's a good quote. James, honestly, congratulations. Glad to see you succeed. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of collectible markets. I know you know that well, right? Yeah, I am into crypto. I don't know what stacking or yield farming is. Brian said, I was going to ask when this video is coming. King Tony, do you recommend using a wait, we answered that already. I'm getting there, guys. Hold on. I'm getting there. James said, if questions about winter prep. If you have any more questions, James, let me know. Joan said, I'm in 7A and got my fig trees in the garage about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, take them out, Joan. Take them out. uh, let's see. You know what, Brian? On the subject of wine, I do want to mention this. If I do actually pass the CPA exam and I'm done with it, I have a very, very good bottle of wine that I've been saving for a very special occasion from my buddy Mario in Connecticut, and I cannot wait to open that bottle and taste it. I've been dying to taste it. On numerous occasions I thought about it, but it's been good motivation, I think, and Mario is such a good person. Pete said, my wood keeps getting sun-scald in the winter. Sun-scald? Is it the new growth or the old growth? Let me know about that, Pete, because I'm not sure what you mean. Chato said, I heard the hybrid one is super sensitive to the cold also. Yeah, the Palmata, the Iraqi you're talking about? Some of them are very sensitive, you know. I think a lot of the Palmata hybrids are more sensitive to the cold. Robert says, I have 2 trees in Niagara Falls, New York. Cover them with a tarp, put pipe heating coil around the tree. Heats up to 45. So is your heating coils, by the way, Robert, are they, they're actually heated, right? They're not just like some sort of foam insulation or something. You actually have a coil that you probably plug in, connected into the electricity somewhere. Zach says, I planted Noir De Barbantain late this summer above grade, and last year's freakish winter of negative 20 degrees killed it. The other 31 planted the same way were perfectly fine below the soil. Yeah, well, negative 20 degrees will do it, man. If you're looking for that variety again, let me know in like a few weeks. Reach out to me on FigBid, and I'll send you a couple cuttings of Noir De Barbantain. Robert said, you ever have mice eat the trunk? No. On my other fruit trees, yes. And I typically have the tree guards. They're like these little spirals that you put around the bottom of your tree. I get them on amleo.com. I forget the name of them exactly. Pete says, what are your thoughts on horticultural paint for the winter? Well, it's supposed to help with sun scald. It's supposed to help maybe even with mice and voles and things like that. Robert, you can also put down this vole. There's a couple products that I've tried over the years. I don't even know if they work because I don't typically have mice or voles. But you could also get cats, but you could also get some sort of thing you can put on the soil that will kill the rats or kill the mice and different things like that. Ex Solo, any updates on the elderberries? Yeah, they got kind of hammered the year I planted them. I forget what happened. I think one of the guys who mows our lawn weed whacked the thing down to nothing. It came back this year and it's doing well. It may fruit next year, I imagine. I think it could, but I'll probably dig it up in May and move it to my new property, assuming that's what's going to happen. I definitely want to grow the elderberry, like without a doubt. I think that's going to be a staple, or at least something I don't know if I'll go crazy with them, but I'm definitely going to have a couple elderberries on my new property. You know, the flowers, the fruits themselves, the juice, there's so many uses for them. And I think it's pretty highly underrated of a fruit. And same thing with the Aronia berry that Robert's mentioning here. I've tried Aronia berries. There was a guy in Princeton. I got to go visit his orchard. He's growing all kinds of weird fruit at the time. He was growing so many weird berries, and he was making actually a pretty good living selling them locally, commercially. And it was working out for him. But, one of the things he had in pretty high quantity was the Aronia. And, yeah, it just seems like it wasn't something that I would love to eat fresh. But I've seen since some other things that I would really like to use it for and definitely grow it. Joan said, can I order fig trees from your store by March or April? Typically in March and April, Joan, I'm not really selling anything. At that time, I'm working during tax season, and it's a very hectic, stressful time. So, can't really do it then. T. Jalil said, how hardy is yellow longneck? I think it's pretty hardy. I remember, I think my friend Mountain Figs, his name's Tony, he, I think, reported some decent hardiness on that variety. Maybe down to a 5 or 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Robert Jenkins, 1 year, 4 to 5 years ago, either mice or moles actually cut the 5-inch trunks in half like a beaver. Oh my God. Wow. Yo, what's up, Danny? When are we going to get to see each other again, dude? Sometime at Staten Island. I didn't go this year. I had some other things to do. But it would be nice maybe that if that event could really get their act together. Who knows? Seems like at least the prior year that we went, or that I was there, a lot of people were really complaining about parking. And I don't know. There's a lot of people there seem to be there for the wrong reasons nowadays too. As Peter Kandari has kind of been bringing up a little bit more and more, which I tend to agree with him. People are just not into figs for the right reasons anymore. Somehow I'm, been put into that category. Brian said, how are your persimmons? They are so good, Brian. So good. Oh my goodness. I just wish that I had more of them. I really do. I wish I had hundreds or thousands. What I should do is ask around, maybe on you guys or someone in the area, maybe someone I know on social media or something might have a tree that they know of that's in the area that I can go to and harvest a whole bunch of persimmons. There's got to be one in the area that is like neglected or something, and nobody is using the fruit. There's probably multiple trees like that, I would imagine. Yep said, do you have a favorite pomegranate variety? What I would do, Yep. By the way, Yep, what a name. I think you should go to my list here on the pomegranates. There are 2 pomegranates that are extremely tasty. One is this one here. Don't know how to say it. Not even gonna try. And there's also the Parfianca. These are highly regarded as the 2 best. I think Cerevini. Also has a good reputation. So does this one. The problem is I don't know. I imagine you can grow all of them in Texas. I don't think you probably would have a problem. 8A Dallas, Texas. Is Dallas the where is it in Texas here? Oh, you're gonna get some rain in Dallas. That's a tough one, man. And you're pretty far north. Problem is with pomegranates is that they split, and I can't really comment too much on the splitting of them. But you want one that doesn't split, and you probably want one that ripens a little bit early where you're at. And I think they're all probably hardy to 8A, or pretty much close to it. I I would imagine Sunbar is probably a good option for you. It's very early, soft seeded, pretty good fruit quality. I think you'd like it. This one here translates to early as well. So maybe, I don't know. I think you need to do your own due diligence. I think you need to just try it yourself. There may be people who actually know what they're talking about with this kind of crap, and you can get in contact with them. Because I don't. Brian, I will say this. Proc is an insanely good persimmon. I don't understand why people don't give the American persimmon more credit. It's an incredible piece of fruit. It's mind-blowing. I have a celebrity persimmon, a couple of them I'm going to taste very soon. I'm going to know if it's just Proc or if it's all the Americans. Proc is mind-blowingly good. It's like the best fig you could eat every single time. That's why I love it so much. It is. It's like on par with some dried figs right off the tree. But I think it takes it to an even higher level because of the climate that I'm in. If I lived in California, I think it'd be tough for me to take the persimmon, I think, over the fig. But I've never had a persimmon from California. You know, I've had many figs from California. And those were amazing. And those beat out the persimmons here. But do they beat out the persimmons? Actually, I've had some persimmons from California. Man. What's his name? I forget his name. He reached out to me, actually, pretty recently through email. But years ago, I did this video for a viewer's birthday. It was a viewer's birthday, and his girlfriend put together a montage of a bunch of his favorite YouTubers and people that he listens to, and she put it all together into this thing, and he got to watch it on his birthday. It was pretty cool. And now you actually pay people to do that through what's that service called? I'm not sure. That was the only time I've done it, but it was pretty cool. Okay, so how did I get into what made me interested in figs in the first place? My grandfather. You never heard the story, Lee? Yeah, my grandfather is a super Italian guy. Came over the house one day, you know, kind of planted the figs in the backyard and with these long branches. And I don't know. I thought he was crazy because I'm like, you can't just stick a stick in the ground and have it turn into a tree. Turned out he was right, you know. I always liked figs, dried figs, and they're so hard to find. They're expensive. The quality's kind of here or there. Never had a fresh fig, so I said I'm going to grow figs and see what happens. I was growing all these houseplants at the time. Chato said, how's the Che doing, or the Chi? It keeps dropping, but the tree is massive now. So I would imagine the tree is so dug in, it's so well established at this point that if it doesn't hold on to the fruits, then I think there's just a problem. I don't know. Some of these trees, man, they're just a mystery. You know, like the Rosianca persimmon, like the thing's massive. I keep cutting it. I don't want it to get too big. But I feel like if I just let it do its thing and keep growing, it probably would have put out a lot of fruits by now. You know, do some trees just need to be massive for them to really fruit? You know, like, what's the deal? Like, I don't know. There's just certain trees that are just still a mystery to me. Pete said I'm eating some Trader Joe's dried Turkish figs right now. I bought some dried figs. These guys. I bought a bunch of these. I'm just not a fan of this brand. I don't like these at all. They're not good quality. I was like, wow, they're so cheap. I just decided to get them. I'm not really blown away by them. And Some of them are good, but I always inspect them because sometimes you find different things growing or different things in them. Um, Maybe you find a little bit of mold or whatever it is that you find. But and they also can typically sometimes have a very chemically flavor, which is they put something on them that helps preserve them, and it kind of gives them a just unpleasant taste. And I like them personally when the consistency is perfect. It's just amazing how different this fig is from an actual dried fig that I dry myself. Why is this so different? It gives me the creeps. You know what I mean? There's something not right about it. I like all my dried fruits to have like the gooey center and chewy outside. Persimmons are that exactly, which is why I think they're the best dried fruit. All right. Robert said, do I have any experience growing bananas? No. I kind of know the gist of what you have to do to make them work here, but to me, it's not worth it. I'm going to grow them in the ground under a high tunnel at some point. Trader Joe's figs were bunk. I'd eat my own dried hardy Chicago figs instead. Yeah, kind of what I just said. I don't know about the Trader Joe's one, though. I never had those. Typically, the Black Mission ones are not very good. They're very chemically. You gotta find some that are typically from the Calamurna, I think, and that's what you'll do. All right, what's going on here? James said, "Have you tried Martinique Ramada? Probably is my favorite variety so far. Super late ripening. Yeah, it's late and it splits a lot. So I never really. I did try to acquire it, but my tree ended up being mislabeled, and then I never tried to get it again because I was like, this is just stupid. I don't even. It's just there because it was a Ramada. And at the time, I thought that'd be cool to have. But then I had actual thoughts that this is just a stupid idea, you know? Where are we at? Pedro said, dude, I message you all the time and you never write back. My figs are dying. Where are you messaging me? So if you write on the latest video that I put out, that's what I keep up with. I don't have time to keep up with all the other old videos, all the other comments on the old videos. So I'll occasionally, maybe like a week goes by, and I'll go through all the comments on YouTube. I'll catch up. You know, a week goes by, and I'll catch up on the Facebook comments. And I'll try to get back to people as many as I can. Pedro, what videos are you commenting on? Brian, I don't think varieties really do poorly to heavy pruning necessarily. I mean, they can. The problem is when you're doing heavy pruning in a lower light environment, that's the real trouble. Because you can prune really hard. Like, you could still do what I'm doing and cut them back to 6 to 12 inches, but you just, like, you need to give them the light, right? You have to open up the center. You have to stake the branches away from each other. It's just, you know, a big deal to get the fruit buds to set. You don't have the light, you don't get the fruit buds to set. on a variety like Celeste, I find this is kind of weird with another variety of mine. St. Martin. I find that even if the fruit buds were to set at a lower point, it got enough light, the fruit buds set, the figs had formed, but as the tree grows taller and taller, the bottom of the canopy starts to get more and more shaded. And I think with certain varieties, if you have a very shaded lower canopy, those fruits will just tend to drop. And that's why I think people have a lot of Celeste figs that drop, and they claim that Celeste drops a lot of figs. It's just pure and simply, I think, that the tree doesn't get enough light. So I don't like to cut them back. A fig like Celeste, a fig like St. Martin, I don't think really appreciates being cut back so much if it's in a low light environment. Now, if I, had my trees instead of in 6 and 7 hours of light every day, if I had a farm, let's say it gets 10 or 12 hours of light a day, then I'm in business. Then I don't have to worry about this kind of crap. James said, yeah, I want the next Verdino del Nord. I can't get it and absolutely know it's the right one. Either you or Trees of Love. What? I don't know. Did I read that right? Oh, you want the next one that you can get and absolutely know it's the right one. Guys, by the way, we don't really have much of a response. When I was reading what Casey just said, what zone are you in, Pedro, and what's the problem? Typically people have problems and comment on the videos and stuff. There isn't really too many people who even interject and try to help the person out, so if you see someone like that, please go ahead and try to help the person out. If I'm not going to be the one, unfortunately, to answer every single person's comment. If you guys see something like that, feel free. Adrian said, thanks, great info again, Ross, especially with the Black Celeste. Thank you, Adrian. Zach said, thanks, Ross. I kept a backup in a pot. Northwest Arkansas isn't supposed to be that cold, usually -5. Holy crap. Well, what zone is that? You're in a zone 6B and you got that cold? That's crazy. All right, so Casey and Zach, we're going to try to get them. We're trying to hook them up. So how old are you guys? Are you on a similar age? Can I play matchmaker? Zach says, I'm using your low tunnel method this year. It's been a long project. I wish you the best of luck. I think, honestly, for the low tunnel system to really work, you need a lot of light. And I would not recommend planting them as close as I have. I would really recommend doing it, having your trees planted as espaliers, low cordons to the ground, and cut them back to those low cordons every year. If you have the low cordons, and you have a lot of light, it's going to work really well. Also, you don't want to really give the trees too much heat too soon. That was my big issue this year. I burned all the trees to a crisp. They dried up underneath the tunnels. You need to slowly get them awake. Once they're awake, you can then go crazy with the heat. But you really don't want to keep it above 80 for an extended period of time. I think it's a bad idea. I've been really upset about that this year because I was really hoping and looking forward to it. Zach said, hey, Casey, great place. Don't tell anybody. Come see me at the Fayetteville Farmers Market. Holy crap, dude. He's already making moves. Seth said, "Hey Ross, if you could, would you use radiant floor heat to help potted figs in the spring, or would you just use heaters to raise the air temp?" Man, radiant floor heat. Do you have radiant floor heat? Like, what does that even look like, Seth? Honestly, if radiant floor heat sounds a lot better to me because a heater dries out the air and dries out the wood. And what you really want is heat at the root level. You don't want heat really in the branches at the you don't need that. I mean, the heat will rise. So if I could direct the heat of my heater downwards towards the pots, then you're way better off because it's really all you want. You want warm soil. You need to get the metabolism to 78 degrees Fahrenheit as quickly as you can and as often as you can. James said, "Ross, people cover." Oh God! All right, we're gonna have to wrap this up here soon, guys. I gotta get to sleep here at some point. I've been going to bed at 11. We're almost there. James said, "Ross, people cover the trees up here and move all light in the winter, and other people, I've heard, put them in the garage. So I figured a cold room in my house would be the same until it's warm out." Keep the tree, James. Doesn't matter about the light. The temperature is everything. You want it in between 20 degrees Fahrenheit and 45 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. If it's over 50 for extended periods of time, it's going to wake up. And you're going to regret it. And you don't want your tree to wake up too soon. You want it to wake up outside. You can have it wake up in March. Keep it in a cold place so it barely puts out any growth. By the time May comes around, your average last frost is gone. You can get away with that. But you don't want to have them wake up like 2 months or 3 months or 4 months before your average last frost. That's actual disaster. All right, so Yep agrees with something I said. Perfect. Happy to help. Okay. Feel dumb if this was a mistake. Yeah, well, don't feel dumb. This is a learning experience, man. You know, not everyone's going to know everything from the beginning. You got to ask the questions. You got to know. Otherwise, you'll just keep making the same mistake, you know? Casey Jones said, "Okay, we'll have about 30 varieties now. Maybe we could trade sometime." All right, you're making... She's going to go to the farmer's market. She's going to bring her fig trees. And what's the other guy's name? And Zach is going to come in with some produce or whatever. Match made in heaven, okay? You heard it here first. We did it on the Ross Ratty YouTube channel. Okay. Robert said, "Proc in the backyard a few days ago, actually. Going to give the Viking Aronia Berry a shot." Viking, I hear, is a good variety. Proc, as you know, I love. Chado says, "I think you might need a male." Yeah, I mean, everyone keeps saying you don't need a male. You don't need a male. At some point, I think the tree just has to fruit, right? It may take many years. Like, I may move that tree to my new property, plant it somewhere where the thing can get like 30 feet tall and just let it do its thing and not worry about it, you know? I don't think the fruits are going to be very good, though. That's my one thing, is that I feel like I'm just wasting my time for a fruit that's not even very good. Brian says, "I have both hybrids now. Time for Americans. Just need more land." I'm going to talk to a couple of towns and see if we can put them in local parks. That's awesome. I want to put... There's a local park near me that I really want to start a community orchard there. Pamela said... "Come out of Texas on Galveston Bay. My uncle in East Texas was an agricultural ag agent. Always advised to grow. Was already grown in your area for best results." Absolutely. Jones says you got Italian roots. I was guessing they're Italian or Lebanese. Lebanese. Holy shit. Well, yeah, I guess Lebanese is pretty similar to Italian cultures, really. I love Lebanese people. they've always been so nice to me. Bass is Lebanese. I love his family, and I think even I don't want to say if Romeo is, but I think he is too. My friend Romeo, and his family is awesome too. A lot of Middle Eastern cultures really have great family values, and it's really important. And that's really what I've been raised to have on both sides of my family. Pamela said, my family took cuttings from neighbors and they turned into massive fig trees with fabulous fruit. You know what, Casey? Fine. You just ruined my entire dream, okay? Okay? You ruined everything. Took from my massive fig trees with fabulous fruit, 1988, uproot. Holy crap. What? Well, it's time to plant another tree, I guess, right? Thank you, Pamela, for sharing that. Brian said those dried figs are always underripe and dry. Yeah, they are underripe actually. That's a good way to put it. What variety are peach trees? I'm also trying to grow Belle of Georgia and Flaming Fury. I've heard that the largest peach variety that can get to 1.5 pounds. Whoa. I like Red Haven. Red Haven's just solid in a lot of places. Indian Free, I also recommend. Tougher to grow though. Brian said Trader Joe's are the best I've found besides a local market. Okay, I may have to go and get some. Brian, are you getting like which ones are you getting exactly? Is it just general dried figs that they have, or is there a particular one? Maybe they have 2 different types. Wolf Built said, I have a small orchard there. When I move in, I'm learning a lot about pruning and tree spacing and light and airflow and fruit trees. A lot of nuance. There is a lot of nuance. You don't really know, I think, right away when you first start out. You learn so much about pruning and all that. You're right. Absolutely. A lot of my trees are spaced way too close, I think. But to do what I'm doing, I don't regret anything. I wanted to have what I have, so it's the best I could do. But yeah, there's a lot of nuance to pruning and really shaping the trees as well. Steve said I agree that Trader Joe's figs are the best I can get outside of Whole Foods. Interesting. Have you guys had the ones from Costco? They're pretty good. What are the other ones that I really recommend? Let me just look here. That looks like a nice fig, by the way. I know I posted about this recently, I think, this past winter. Or we talked about it this past winter. These are good. These I got from... these are dried mission figs that I ended up getting from ShopRite, which is a local grocery store by me. This is the ShopRite brand. And no. That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. This is Black Mission figs from this really awesome grocery store that's like got a lot of local options, organic, local, gluten-free, dairy-free options there. Oh man, what is that place called? I don't even know the brand. I know I did a video on it, so if anyone's really interested, you could just search dried figs and you'll find the video that I'm talking about. Because those are really good figs, I thought. And I talk a lot about dried figs in that post. All right, where do we go here? We got to wrap this up here, guys. I'm falling asleep. Brian says, I have some cuttings I'd like to send you to try. Let me know how to go about that. Brian, I'd love to try them, but if you have photos of the Frodos, if you have Bilbo Baggins of the photos, if you have photos of the fruits, let me know, because I really prefer to see the fruits before I trial anything that's unknown, mostly because I'll know for the most part if it'll do well here. I have a good idea. I'll also sort of know if it's already something that I'm growing, and I don't want to grow something else with limited space if I am already growing it. But I do appreciate that. And if there are some figs, by the way, that I'm just looking for a lot of them. Like if someone has a Celeste heirloom, more inclined to try that than, let's say something that's just Osborne prolific by a different name, you know. So there are some, like even some hardy Chicago types I might consider trying, even if it is something I'm already growing. All right, let's see here. Cutting the senior child, let me know about that. Okay. Robert said, what variety of fig would you recommend if someone already had brown turkey, Violette de Bordeaux, hardy Chicago, and Italian honey? Depends on where you live, Robert. You gotta tell me where you live. Like, what part of the country are you in? Pete said, my trees have dead leaves from frost. They're all leaving an amazing aroma in my yard. Yeah, I guess that's kind of true, huh? Robert said he got a tree from Stark Brothers. Doctor said, has anyone had figs burn in their mouth? I tried some Trader Joe's figs that were not perfectly ripe, and they destroyed my mouth. Wow. Yeah, that's not... I've never had that. That's very strange, and they shouldn't have sap on them, the sap is what would burn your mouth, but why would a dried fig have sap on it? I wonder. You must be very sensitive to it. There are some people just very sensitive. That's so strange. I don't know. Mike, have you ever had problems with soil gnats while rooting your cuttings? Yeah. Believe it or not, we had gnats. I brought my citrus trees in for the winter. A lot of the fungus gnats were in the soil of the citrus trees, went all around the house, causing havoc and stuff. You just put out a bowl of apple cider vinegar, half of it's vinegar, half of it's water, and a little bit of dish soap. They will all go in the vinegar and die. I promise you. Don't overwater your cuttings. That's how they get there to begin with. 4-year-old stopped eating them because of his mouth hurt. Wow, my God. That's crazy. Thank you. I'm going to keep them covered with panda film. Back on one side or the other. Spy is the plan. 7 feet apart. Glad you could give you a laugh. I'm just a guy running a business. Yeah. Man, everyone go see Zach at his farmer's market in, what is it, Fayetteville, you said? I don't know what panda film is. Black on one side, white on the other. Interesting. Weird. Spy is the plan, 7 feet apart. Well, hopefully it works. You just got to have enough light. If you space out the fruiting branches along the espalier, you're going to have so much more success, because if they're spaced properly, they're going to get the light they need. And every leaf, if you do it right, every leaf should represent a fig. That's how you know you're doing it right. If every leaf isn't representing a fig, you're not getting enough light, you're doing it wrong, and you need to space the branches out a bit more. Steve says he can't wait to try his proc from Just Fruits and Exotics. Just Fruits and Exotics is a great nursery, by the way. So, Steve, you're just saying that the Trader Joe's figs are Black Mission or Brown Turkey. They have panache in the past, huh? Natural. Okay, so Robert here, yeah, natural can work. A lot of things can work, but simple and easy fix is that vinegar, I'm telling you. And just don't overwater. Robert said, I got the persimmon in just a few days. It looks okay. I'm okay. It was well roused. I'm trying to consider what fruit tree to get next. It was you, Robert, right? Oh yeah, yeah. You're asking about where's 6B though? That's the problem. Like, I don't. There's so many places that are 6B. So, how much rain do you get? That's really what I'm trying to figure out. What's your annual rainfall? Okay, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Take care, Heather. Thank you for joining us. I hope to see everybody here for the next one that we do. I'm going to try to make this a bit more regular, maybe once a month or something. Haley, what's going on, buddy? Micro barbs in the outside of the skin that stick out, if not the latex. Micro barbs? These figs are dangerous, guys. Lots of rain and lots of droughts. What in... Oh, Jesus. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Annual rainfall. Interesting. Let's do a monthly average rainfall. Well, assuming this is relatively accurate. Oh, that's pretty good if that's true. 3 inches of rain during July and August. That's pretty good. September, that really stinks. So you want some early varieties. It's kind of like where I'm at. Let's see what they say about Philadelphia. Why isn't this letting me open up a new tab? Okay, this website's just weird. I don't know if I trust this this website, to be honest. All right. Anyway, yeah, you want them early, I would imagine. Assuming this is correct, you know, you want to get them before September. You're gonna have a lot that ripen though in September, and you're gonna have a lot that ripen in October. So everything you want is going to have to be very rain resistant, and in which case brown turkey is probably a really bad idea. It's just not going to do well. I would try to look for something that's common but is very good. I would go for a Smith. It's seriously one of the best. The amount of fruits I ripened from that tree as well that were very high quality, I would say I picked more Morro De Caneva and more Smith than anything else this year. Although I have a lot of Smith trees, so I would go for a type of Celeste, and I would probably get Smith. And I would consider maybe... Well, you know, you might want to start thinking about flavors and flavor profiles and stuff because, you know, Hardy Chicago, Violet de Bordeaux, Celeste, they taste relatively similar. I mean, they don't taste the same by any means, but you're not getting something wildly different. Like Smith would be pretty wildly different than probably Violet de Bordeaux or Celeste. I think Hardy Chicago can be like Azores Dark can be similar to Smith. You got a lot of choices there, actually. I think it also depends on how much money you want to spend, because some of these are a bit more rare and more expensive than others. And until enough people get them and they become less rare, the price really just isn't going to come down for the most part. Let's see, what else? All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I do appreciate everybody joining in. DR said, in a humid zone 6B, would Campaneri fig in ground likely survive without cutting back and covering it? Or is that a dream? I think it's a dream. You would need to be in a warm zone 6. Now, if you planted it in the perfect spot, you had it against the house on like the south side of the house, maybe even the southwest corner of the house. There wasn't a lot of wind. You planted it very high above grade in a way that really sheds a lot of the water so that the tree lignifies well and you don't have a lot of growth in the summer. It's possible. It's possible. The problem is, DR or doctor, you're going to have to wait a number of years before you'll really find out. You could be looking at like 4 or 5 years. So if you're not really willing to put in 4 or 5 years, maybe you plant it in the perfect spot and you enjoy the fruits for the first 3 or 4 years, and then finally you're like, all right, let's see if I don't have to wrap it this year. Let's just see what happens. And it might work out. If you wrap them though and they get through the wintertime, that's a tree, you know. That's why we're doing a lot of limb bending this year. Steve said, any culinary applications with fig leaves? I made fish with them one time. I didn't think it really picked up a lot of flavor in the fish. You know, you need a fish that's, on the blander side. You can also make tea. Other than that, I don't know. I really don't know of any other uses. I guess you could wrap fig leaves like you would wrap grape leaves, and you could you could steam things in them. Like I don't know, like the insides of a pepper, like a stuffed pepper. Instead of having the pepper, you could almost like a dumpling type situation. Zach says, I'm digging my yellow long neck up. Lots of figs, very slow to ripen and not that tasty usually. It's not the tastiest fig. I think it really needs a warmer climate. Now, if I can get it to ripen early, which I've yet to see just from my tree, I know it can ripen early. I think it's actually an earlier ripening fig. Then I think the fruits will be very good. But if I'm getting them in October, it's not going to work out. You know, there's too many things that can go wrong. I have a lot of them out there right now. I have probably 10 or so ripening right now, and it's just too late by this point. There's too many things going wrong with it. Hardy Chicago is a very good fig, you know. It does depend on the particular strain or the particular named Hardy Chicago that you go with. I don't think they're all created equal, personally. Some are very good and some are just about average. In the right soil, even the worst one can be very good. In a dry soil, the most average Hardy Chicago can still be very good. So I think it's a much better fig than people give it credit for. But Smith is like mind-blowingly good, and it performs so well. It'll do well in Oklahoma for sure if you can get it through the wintertime. Fig liqueur and chocolate fig leaf ice cream are very good. What about Malta Black? White Marseille is not a bad fig. I think people don't give it enough credit. Doctor said I had deer eating my figs. It's an oddity here. I've read that figs are usually deer resistant. They are. They're not really their first choice, but if there's nothing else, they'll eat them. They've eaten my figs, actually, but not, not a lot. I think they bit into it and realized that there's much better food around. All right, guys. Well, that is it. We're going to call it there. I don't think anybody else has any questions. Pedro, I hope that you put some comments on our recent videos, and I'll hope to answer the questions there, man. We'll see you guys soon, all right? Thank you guys for coming. It's always nice to do these things. I always have a lot of fun. Even though the beginning of this was pretty much spurred by annoyance in terms of the ignorance of the fig communities and stuff. But, people are always going to hate, and there's nothing I really can do about it, I think. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I really would never even have known if someone didn't just speak up and say something to me. So if people are just talking shit, I really don't even care. I don't even want to know. So keep me out of it. It's not worth it. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon, all right?